It's, of course, early December, and in the college football world, that means a lot concerning coaching changes, coaching upheaval, rumors, all sorts of vacancies available, but for a very short period of time. And the coaching shuffle continues across the SEC and the nation, and, of course, bowl preparation as well, both happening at Mississippi State as the Bulldogs take on Lamar Jackson in Louisville in the Tech Slayer Bowl later this month. And Dan Mullen, fortunately, moving on to Florida. Joe Moorhead is the new guy in play at Mississippi State. We bring in Daniel Black. You can join him and the rest of the crew at For Whom the Cowbell Tolls at Mississippi State's platform on SB Nation. All right, Daniel, I'm going to ask you first about Dan Mullen departing, because I know that he had made so much progress at Mississippi State, considering some of the limitations and challenges there against a very difficult decision, maybe the best in college football, that generally brought tremendous results there, that he was well-liked. You hated to see him go. So what was the reaction? Was there shock, or just thought that this was probably going to happen, we just didn't want it to happen?
Well, it's been sort of a mixed reaction amongst the fans. Throughout this entire season, we've sort of had the feeling that Dan Mullen would actually stay, due to the fact that we've got a very good team returning next season, 16 to 17 starters, including our starting quarterback Nick Fitzgerald will be coming back, starting running back, 4 offensive linemen, and a bunch of defensive talent coming in next season, including a very good recruiting class in this upcoming 2018 class. When he left, it was a bit of a surprise, because throughout the entire season, we had the feeling, it was a combination of both hope and the feeling, that Dan Mullen would stay. But when it comes to Florida's situation, from what we know, obviously we can't guarantee anything or confirm everything that we know about the Florida coaching search. But from what we can tell, both Chip Kelly and Scott Frost passed on him, and Scott Strickland, their athletic director, obviously former athletic director at Mississippi State, who worked with Dan Mullen for 5 years. Dan Mullen was sort of the obvious choice in terms of familiarity, and that's exactly what Scott Strickland went with. And after the Egg Bowl on Thursday, that disappointing loss, Mullen and Strickland said that Scott Strickland called him on that Friday and Saturday, and he was hired on Sunday. In terms of the fan reaction, Mississippi State, he was building something pretty special in Mississippi State, and next year, with how much hope we had for next year's team, that even with this upcoming hire of Joe Moorhead, which we'll discuss later, we're pretty excited about this upcoming season. He was building something really special, and the fact that he would get up and leave sort of definitely rubbed Mississippi State fans the wrong way. And one thing that is of note is that Mississippi State has not had a coach that has gotten up and left for a better opportunity since 1956, when Darrell Royal went to Texas, and that worked out for him, I would say. He's got a stadium named after him. But because of that, Mississippi State fans aren't familiar with this. Every single coach since Darrell Royal has gotten fired. So this is unfamiliar territory for us. And, it's sort of split in two hairs. There's people that are completely just downright angry with him. And, people are saying that they're glad he's gone and stuff. But I know in reality, they're just disappointed. So they want to take it out on anger. And then there are others that are disappointed that he's gone, but they're appreciative, which is sort of the camp that I fall under. It's definitely a mixed reaction. Mullen was the second winningest coach in Mississippi State history. Had he stayed another year, he would have more than likely, barring some epic calamity, passed Jackie Sherrill as the winningest coach in program history. But still, he leaves with, as the second winningest coach in program history. Took us to 8 straight bowl games, which is by a mile the longest streak in program history. He did a lot of great things, and we all wish him well at Florida, except when they come to Starkville next year on September 29th.
Yes, the rotation comes up against the SEC Eastern Division. Of course, the annual game against Kentucky, but Florida's coming up in the rotation. That's kind of ironic. Mm-hmm. Very interesting there. That'll be much anticipated. I was around for the Jackie Sherrill era, and it was very similar from the standpoint that the program had been down and out for decades. There were a couple decent seasons that popped up in the 70s and 80s, but basically down for decades. Jackie Sherrill took over and brought them into national prominence, finishing a number of seasons ranked, winning bowl games, getting to an SEC championship game. Dan Mullen takes over a program in similar similar status at that point, the bottom of the division, getting beat up in the SEC, and made going to postseason games, going to good postseason games like the Orange Bowl, of course, being the best a couple of years ago, a regular thing in Starkville, and elevating that program to a national ranking on a regular basis, and making those things commonplace, winning 8-9 games and finishing in the top 25. The down part, and to what you state about it, going back all the way to Darrell Royal. So I'm glad you've done your homework. That's good stuff there. That's interesting. I would have never come across that or thought of that. I did know that Darrell Royal was at Mississippi State, and then of course made his legend at Texas. But in regards to the program having to fire all those coaches and not having a situation in which a coach was coveted that much to go to another program, speaks to a lot of downtimes during most of those decades at Mississippi State. But now you're at a place where there's only so many jobs across the country that Mississippi State is going to have to release a coach to a better situation. I think Mississippi State's in a place where, yes, there is Clemson, Alabama, and you can go through the various conferences and pluck a couple programs, 2 to 3 probably in most conferences, but there aren't that many jobs. And if you arrive at Mississippi State and you're successful enough to be coveted by other teams, it's going to be the rare situation in which I would think a successful Mississippi State coach is going to be taken off to another program going forward. So this was just the perfect storm in regards to Dan Mullen's connection at Florida, his the program in the area and what he had accomplished there, and obviously them having a fertile recruiting state and all the resources and advantages in Florida, and him moving on there.